Hi, I'm Femi OK and you're in the stream. Today, a look at the Ukrainian crisis through Russian eyes. Our Russian guests share their candid take on the events in Ukraine. Whenever we do shows about Russia with Russians, I always think to expect the unexpected. They are always a little bit different, fascinating. Malika Bilal, digital producer of The Stream. What's going on with our online community?
Well, it's always great to see the view from inside Russia, and so that's why I'm particularly excited to be getting tweets from our Russian community. They're tweeting us their questions, their concerns. Have a look at this tweet. This is from a Russian who's actually living in Vienna, Austria, as you can see on the map. And he says, I'm Russian, and I see lots of anti-Russian propaganda and Russophobia in European and American news. I can't support that, he says. Of course, we want to hear your thoughts on this as well, so tweet us with #AJStream.
Hi, I'm Walt Richmond. I'm the Director of Russian Studies at Occidental College in Los Angeles, and I'm in the stream.
When it comes to the ongoing crisis in Ukraine, where do ordinary Russians stand and how do they view President Vladimir Putin's policies? Since the annexation of Crimea, the Russian government has been the target of a flurry of sanctions and a barrage of criticisms by those in the West over Putin's policies in Ukraine. Despite this, opinion polls suggest the Russian president is enjoying his highest approval ratings in years. In fact, following his decision to annex Crimea, his approval rating soared to 83%, with a majority of Russians saying their country is headed in the right direction. So today we want to tap into Russian public opinion on Ukraine and President Putin, and to help us do that we're joined by Viktor Levanov. He is a political blogger and political consultant in Moscow. Roman Dobrokotov is a blogger and activist also in Moscow. Olga Grigorians is a Russian reporter who's also a graduate in student journalism at the University of Southern California. And Slava Lushnya is a Russian IT consultant with personal ties to Ukraine. It's great to have you all here in the stream. Roman, I'm going to kick off with you and I'm curious as to how big a story is Ukraine in Russia right now? For instance, what leads the news on a daily basis? Is it Ukraine or is it something else?
Well, that's really big news in Russia, and in every day in all news reports we see everything about happening in Ukraine, and I think even we see less about Russia than about Ukraine today, and Russian authorities think about human rights in Ukraine much more than human rights in Russia today. So that is I think a little bit artificial, because this we usually didn't pay much attention about human rights of Russians abroad, for example in Turkmenistan, in lots of other countries where there were real problems with rights of Russian people. But now we see that the government does a lot of efforts to make this story more loud, and we see unprecedented propaganda and very aggressive propaganda which make our nation divided and our public opinion divided.
Yeah, one person's propaganda is another person's like, no, that's exactly what I think. What do you mean by propaganda?
I mean that we see only those political analysts who are biased and who supports invasion to Ukraine. We see that lots of facts are distorted, and that we see lots of myths, lots of falsified facts about what's happening in Ukraine and with the Russians in Ukraine, and we cannot answer to these facts because alternative thought have no way to reach audience, because our media is censored, unfortunately, and we see more and more independent internet newspapers closed, independent TV channels closed, so we don't have alternative voice here.
Victor, is that how you see things? Is that how you're seeing the news unraveling regarding Ukraine for you?
I can totally disagree with Roman, because I think that much propaganda and myth and gossips about some events in Ukraine from different sides, from Ukraine side, from Russian side, and from like Western side. It's like from US and Europe. Yes, it's an information war. It's silly to say about only one one side of propaganda and myths and lies, and what's about human rights. I think it's not so correct to say about just our authorities think only about human rights in Ukraine, because now it's a situation with maybe military conflict, because Crimea has our own military base, a navy base, which is called Chernomorsky Flot, is very big, and what's human rights in this situation? Only military questions. I think it's the main question with Ukraine.
Well, Slava, I want to bring you in here because we already heard in the first 6 minutes of our show, we've already heard some vehement disagreements. So there was one comment that I want you to pick up on, and that's aggressive propaganda. That's what Roman said that he sees. And so online, Freedom Machine, this is one person who agrees with that. This is a person whose locale, they say, is in Ukraine. So take that into account. Freedom Machine writes, Russians were told that Nazis overthrew the Kiev government, that Russians were mistreated, and that Ukrainians want to join Russia. All lies. Slavik, can you take us into what is actually happening in your view via the news?
My view is that we have, when it comes to states like USA, Russia, Ukraine, and European Union, that's all propaganda, all lies. Well, just convenient lies, different lies, but still lies.
Slava, show us an example of a lie. Tell us what you think is a lie.
For example, the fact that there are Nazis that overthrew Kiev government, that's half true and half lie. Because there are Nazis, people like Svoboda, Ukrainian party, but also there are common people, Kiev population, Western Ukraine population that wanted to get rid of Yanukovych government. So it's a mix. And Russian TV shows us one side of that mix, and Western media shows us another side of that mix, different side.
Olga.
It's not black and white, it's gray.
See, Olga is in a fantastic position. See, Olga is sitting in the United States, but she is Russian. You've got some Ukrainian roots. What's going on in your head, Olga? Are you confused?
Well, I'm very confused at this point, of course, because I have friends in Ukraine, I live in the United States, I have a lot of friends in Russia, many of them are reporters, and we have a lot of discussions about what is going on in Ukraine right now, and especially I feel that there is a big disconnection and gap between two sides, actually between three sides, I would say, because obviously the United States is not, if not a player in this, but obviously a very active observer. And a lot of Russians blame United States on what is going on in Ukraine right now, and I think it's fascinating. My friends call me brainwashed when I write about Ukraine and I write about what is going on in Kiev and especially what is going on in Crimea. At some point I was covering a lot stories in Crimea, and I spoke to a lot of people, a lot of oppositioners and just normal citizens in Kiev and in Crimea, and especially in Sevastopol. And I found out that just regular people, most of them students, at some point wanted to go to Maidan and just, you know, say what they want to say, you know, protest what they didn't like about their government. And what happened is a lot of people in Russia, especially in media, were saying, well, those people are, you know, Nazi, or, you know, just, I don't know, there's a lot of really negative, I would say, reaction from Russians and from Russian media, and I just find it fascinating. So people don't really try to find out what is going on. There's a lot of sources. There's Ukrainian newspapers, there's a Twitter, but for some reason, Russian basically refuse to believe, and they just refuse to see what is really going on there, you know.
Well, Victor, Olga mentioned Crimea, and so with that, I want to take us to Twitter and see if there's a difference in how the events in Crimea differ from what's happening in eastern Ukraine. So Dmitry says, I wish it were so simple. Crimea was simple. Eastern Ukraine isn't. Another person, Lorenzo, says, Russian interests are clear. They're defending national rights in Donetsk and Lugansk and eastern Ukraine. So, Victor, do those two regions, does that differ in your mind, that maybe one thing in one region Russia did the right thing, and the other region not so much. Is there a difference?
Yes, I think there are a big difference between Crimea and eastern Ukraine, because Crimea is our historical territory. I suppose I can't offend somebody, but it's ours. And eastern Ukraine, it's also part of our culture, part of our history, but it's, I think, more Novorossiya, which we call, and maybe it's a part of a country which we call Ukraine. Yeah.
Go ahead, Olga.
Yes, and they have a different.
I have to disagree. There is a Russian population in eastern Ukraine, but at the same time, you know, when you look at the history, Ekaterina the Great basically tried to put, you know, she just tried to put as many Russians as possible in the eastern Ukraine. And what happened is she forced Russians to move to eastern Ukraine because there was a lot of resources, and at some point it was just kind of, you know, resourceful place for Russians to be, you know. And historically, yeah, this land was basically taken from Ukrainians. I mean, it became just a source for...
That's absolutely wrong. Absolutely wrong. Let me tell my personal story. My grandparents are from Ukraine. They moved to Russia, to Siberia, because of Stalin collectivization campaign. But we are Russified Ukrainians. Well, I speak Russian. I do understand Ukrainian, but we are mostly Russian by our mentality. Just like people in East Ukraine, that's their native land. They are not taking something from Ukraine. That's their own homeland, I'd say.
So, explain to me, Slava, just explain to me a second. What does mostly Russian by mentality actually mean? What is a Russian mentality and what is a Ukrainian mentality?
Yes,
well,
I can tell you also about it.
Okay. Russia is a big centralized empire, has been like that for centuries, and Ukraine is rather new. Ukrainian nation is not as old as Russian. If you look at...
Well, this is wrong. This is completely wrong. You just talked about Kievan Rus, which basically started in Kiev.
Yes, I know about that. That's not
Kiev is the mother of Russian cities, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so guess, let me just see if I can get one of you to explain to me what is Russian mentality and what is Ukrainian mentality.
Okay.
There are no differences.
There's no difference?
No, any differences.
Okay.
Since Soviet Union, there are no differences.
There's no difference. I absolutely agree. I mean, absolutely agree. It's just the one nation. You know, it's a really similar language. A lot of Russians have relatives in Ukraine and vice versa. Right. I don't think there is a big difference.
But Slava obviously sees a difference. You said there was a Russian mentality, there was a Ukrainian mentality?
Yes. Ukraine is a different nation. It's a new nation compared to Russia. And yes, they are different because they think, Ukrainians think that they are different. That's what important. That's what the most important is.
Is there animosity now in Russia between Ukrainians and Russians?
No.
Okay.
Absolutely no.
All right. Milika?
Well, that question, Femi, that question, Slava, someone online agreed with you, and so I just want to bring them in here that no, there's no animosity. Ukrainian, especially eastern parts of the country, are the brother nation for Russia. Millions of Russians have relatives there. Another Russian writes in, Dan Grace, just a quick note on Ukraine. Although the majority of Russians do support the Kremlin, that doesn't mean we are all against the Ukrainian people. So, Roman, I want to bring you in here. Yes. Do you have conversations? Do you have a chance to speak to Ukrainians, especially because you're a blogger? Do you see interaction online?
Well, I think that is very important that we are so close in mentality, because that makes it much more painful for Vladimir Putin and Kremlin that this part of former Soviet Union is also going to integrate to European Union, and that it shows in free elections, it shows that way. And that shows other Russian people, other Slavian people, that that is possible for people who were born in the USSR peacefully choose this way and become a real democracy. That for a Russian authoritarian regime, that is very challenging, because that means that Russian people
Roman,
can also opt
could
to
you
do
please
this.
clarify which elections were there? Because on the last presidential elections, Yanukovych was elected president, and he's not really pro-European.
Ukraine is as you may know, Ukraine is a parliamentary country, parliamentary democracy, and
no,
parliament. No, it is so.
No,
parliament.
Yanukovych changed itself.
No, presidential parliamentary.
All right, so here's some disagreement on this point. Let me see if I can get some agreement on how you feel about President Vladimir Putin. Right at the beginning of our discussion, I did mention that his approval rating has shot up. Victor, you met the president quite recently. What was that experience like?
It wasn't my first meeting with him, and
okay.
It was good.
Okay. So I'm going to show a little clip of you asking him a question. Do you want to set up that little clip? What was the question that you asked, and why were you even in a format where you got to talk to your president?
Oh, it was a very complicated question about digital aggression from USA and Europe. Just not about only Google or web services aggression, but from American authorities, which use web services in their own purposes, like that.
Okay. And why was the president even made available to talk to you? Does he often do sort of town hall discussions and listen to public opinion? Victor?
Yes, it's like I look at myself.
You were distracted by your handsome self. I understand that.
I can answer.
All right. While Victor watches himself, let me just ask a couple of the other guests. Olga, President Putin's approval rating, it's shot up. Why is that?
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question, please? I'm sorry.
President Putin's approval rating has shot up. Why do you think that is? Why is he so popular right now?
Oh my gosh, he is extremely popular right now. Well, there's several reasons. I think someone mentioned that Russians are like abused children. They have the father who is abuser, but they don't have any other parent. So this is the only father they have, so they stick to him. So Russians love the image of the strong leader, and one of the popular, words in Russia is, we need a strong leader who would lead Russia out of chaos.
All right, so, Olga, take a breath. Let me just see if Slava is on the same page with you about why the president is so popular.
I think that's not about Putin. Putin is irrelevant in long term, because he's going to be gone maybe in 5, maybe in 10 years. But
didn't you say that 10 years ago?
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
Yeah.
But that's still not about Putin.
Right.
That's
it depends
about
on his
doing
health
the right
when
thing.
he'll go.
Roman, repeat that again, because we didn't hear you.
Putin is doing the right thing now, but
he can go in 5 or 10 years or 20 years. It depends on his health. But the question is not about approval ratings. There are no approval ratings in authoritarian country. We can't say that approval ratings of Adolf Hitler was high, or approval rating of Kim Jong-il is high, because it's insane. There are no approval rating when you have only one face in TV set, which appears every day. When you have
but Roman,
all the
let's
information.
be candid here for a moment. Would you say that majority of Russians are very supportive? Slava says he's on the right track. The majority of Russians, are they behind your president?
I can answer you with other question. You're
going to ask me with a question? This is not going to go well.
No, because that will be an answer, actually. Because when we see people in North Korea crying and screaming when their leader died, was it a sincere cry, or was it a support for leader, or they are so scared that they have no choice? I think that they on their own don't have answer if they are sincere or not, because in this situation you have no opportunity to choose another option. You can't have opportunity to be against, because you will lose your work. You will be in danger if you're a journalist. You will be attacked. You will get threatenings, as I, for example, have, and lots of our journalists had to run from the country, experts had to run from the country. That's not the situation when Russians support a strong leader. That's wrong. Russians are, as in Americans, as Ukrainians, all people are the same in every country. They, if they have opportunities to support some leader, they will support
May I say something about this?
The best from different.
Roman, take a breath. I think what you were saying was there's not much choice, so why wouldn't he be popular? Victor, just very briefly before we wrap up for now.
Yeah, just when opposition activists in Russia want to deny the truth, they just they take Nazis Germany or North Korea and make a comparison with Russia, modern Russia, like we have such bad authorities like from Nazis Germany. It's not true.
All right.
I want to say about majority of Russian and presidential approval rating.
Well, and I'm just going to ask you very briefly. Can you do that in a sentence? Because we've got more things to do. Go ahead.
It's because Vladimir Putin is the first leader of Russia since Soviet Union, which make Russian territory bigger. He's the first man.
Interesting. Yes. Very interesting indeed. Okay, this conversation is not over. Our guests have just got warmed up. We will go back to Slava and Victor and Olga and Roman in the post show at stream.aljazeera.com. But right now, Malika has a few other stories that the stream is following.
Dead turtles, deformed fish, abandoned couches. These are all things reportedly found in the sewage-infested waters of Brazil. These photos by Global Post show the extent of the problem. In Rio, 60% of the sewage is untreated, and it ends up in the city's waters. While the Brazilian government plans to clean it up, some are concerned about what the problem means for the World Cup and the 2016 Summer Games. Next, we head to Europe, where a video sponsored by the Swedish Social Democratic Youth League has gone viral. Have a look.
My grandfather was Rudolf Höss, the Nazi commandant of the Auschwitz extermination camp. My history taught me that democracy, equality, and human rights never can be taken for granted. Never forget to vote.
Accompanied by a selfie campaign, the video expresses concern about the rise in popularity of far-right parties throughout Europe. It's a topic we covered here at the stream, and you can find out more by heading to our website. Finally, fast food workers worldwide are striking against low wages and poor working conditions. Protesters rallied in more than 150 U.S. cities and 33 countries. Rain tweets, solidarity to hashtag fast food global strike for living wage. Don't let the bosses or the unions keep you from demanding the impossible. While Jen pushes back, demanding $15 an hour for unskilled work is ridiculous. Well, thanks to community member Hadim for pitching this story. Now, if you have a story idea, send it our way using hashtag AJStream. Femi?
Thank you very much, Malika. Do you remember a story that we did, a show that we did almost a year ago today, which was called Memifying Black Interviewees?
I remember it very well.
It was fun. It was the early days. Malika and Femi were just working together. Have a look here on my laptop. This is a very long preamble to why I will not be here on Monday, because you viewers and you tweeters, you, our online community, you won this award for us. It is the stream of Memifying Black Interviewees. We have a Webbies Award, the People's Voice, the People's Choice. Thank you. I will be accepting that award, and while I am accepting that award, Malika Bilal will be hosting the show.
Yes, I'll be moving over and I'll be joined by Julio Varela as we look at Argentina. It's a tale of two cities. Now, residents of some of the poorest slums in Buenos Aires are on hunger strike for basic services afforded to the city's wealthier neighborhoods. We'll explore life in what locals call the neighborhoods of misery and see what, if anything, can be done to improve them. And until then, we'll all see you online.
Hello again, welcome back to the Streams Online Post Show. We've been talking about public opinion in Russia on the Ukrainian crisis. So let's get right back to that conversation. Slava, you said something really intriguing to me, and you said that President Putin, your president, is on the right track. Can you explain to me why you think that is?
Okay. I want for you to know that it's not about Putin as a president or as a person, but about what he's doing. What he's doing about pressuring Ukrainian government in Kiev is something right. It doesn't mean there is a conflict between Russians and Ukrainians. This is something.
This is about invading in another country.
All right, so gentlemen, just allow Slava to finish his sentence, otherwise this will take a very long time. And then when he finishes his sentence, then you can jump in, just so that we can hear each other. Go ahead, Slava.
Okay, so it's a conflict between Russians and East Ukrainians against Kiev government. Putin is just here along the way because he has his own interests, but it's not about Putin. That's what Russians are proving, not Putin. But this conflict is Kiev government.
All right, so they appreciate the foreign policy. Roman, what were you trying to say?
Well, I just wanted to agree that it's not about Putin and politics. It's about invading in other country, and whether it would be another Führer or another person, it's violation of all international laws of human rights. It's just an aggressive war, and I can't understand how an educated person can support that. That's if we know all the history of the 20th century, that's insane. That's nonsense. That educated people can again and again make the same mistakes because of the same slogans.
Okay, so Roman, I hear that point, and then Victor, you wanted to say something, and then Olga, I see you agreeing with Roman. So let's go to Victor and then Olga.
I want to say that it's not a nonsense, because the US invade maybe one country per year for some oil or something like that, and to call it, we just want to make it more freedom and democratic country like that. But when Russia came into the territory of ex-Soviet Union, all the world was, oh God, what's going on? I think it's not good.
Olga.
Yes. Well, what makes me think, I think Roman just mentioned that how people can, basically go against their own people and just fight, but support what Putin is doing. But it just makes me feel that the propaganda which is going on right now in the Russian media is so strong. This is basically, it's unbelievable. It's, outrageous. And if you look at the older Russian media, you can see that most of them are owned by the state-run companies or by oligarchs who are loyal to Putin. So it's just kind of like, it makes me think that, yeah, there is a propaganda in Russia, obviously, and it works really well.
Well, online, there are a lot of people with views on why Putin's approval ratings have gone up. Habiba says, people like a decisive and strong leader, and I'd rather have a Putin than what I currently have in my country, Habiba says, and she doesn't say what country she's tweeting from. But Roman, I want you to have a look at this next tweet from Akash. She says, the events in Ukraine have shifted attention away from Russia's sagging economy and its dwindling fortunes to project Putin as a savior. Do you think in a few months we will see protests return to the streets of Moscow? We will see dissent? Do you think we'll also see dropping approval ratings?
I think that's absolutely true, because several months, even several days before invading to Ukraine, Putin's approval ratings were the lowest in the decade, and right after the invasion, he successfully attracted all the attention to the war, and made people forget about lots of the economic and social problems. And Russia have a great number of very tough economic and social problems, like drugs, low pensions, and so on and so on. But I don't think that it's possible to make people notice only what's happening abroad, to make they think only about Ukraine, because in several months, they will understand that economic crisis getting more and more tough in Russia, and they will react. So I think that his approval rating will fall down, even maybe more in more large scale than it used to.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sorry. I think it's a very interesting point because it makes me feel like, yeah.
Slava, we'll come back to you. Go ahead, Olga.
I'm sorry. Rating is going down, but what Putin is going to do to keep this rating up? So, you know, what else he's going to do? Because obviously he thinks about that, and obviously he's going to make necessary steps to keep his rating growing, or, you know, this level.
Slava.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so thank you, Roman, for supporting my point. He just said that before Ukrainian events, Putin rating was low, despite all the state propaganda, all the state media, because he was not doing the right thing. And now he's doing the right thing, and his rating is up.
No, people don't always support right thing. You know, people supported all the dictators we know. There were crowds of people in the streets. That didn't mean that they did right things. If you don't like the example with Hitler, okay, did I don't know, Stalin do right things, or Mussolini or Kim Jong-il? Were they doing right thing? They were supported. What does it mean?
I can explain some things about this. I agree with you. It's strange for me, but I agree that we have a lot of problems with the economy from Sochi times and from floating our ruble course. Yes, it's true, we have a lot of problems, but I think it's not only for taking attention from Russian politics to inner politics. I think it's more complicated because there are a lot of sanctions and new steps from Russia, like ban GPS stations in Russia and ban rocket program with USA, and so it's very far long program for our authorities.
Okay.
It's a changing of our course
from
west to east.
All right, Victor, take a breath. Guests, take a breath. We're just going to go back to the community for a moment.
Well, one of the things that's circulating online, it makes this a very visually rich story, is memes that are circulating about the incidents in Ukraine and in Russia. So this is RuNet memes. They shared this. This isn't Russia rising from its knees, the caption says. It's the USSR, the former Soviet Republic, climbing out of its coffin, and you see that there. With a sickle and hammer. And then another person, well, actually, this is a stream tweet, and this is based on a recent poll. 55% of Russians consider the Soviet Union's dissolution a great misfortune. Olga, you're here in the US, but 55% of your compatriots in Russia were hankering for the USSR days. Do you agree with that sentiment? And do you see where it could be coming from, especially when you see memes like the one I showed that this is Russia rising up, returning to its former Soviet glory?
Yeah, absolutely, I agree with that, because I have a sense that Russians, since the collapse of the Soviet Union, Russians are still looking for identity. And again, they're looking for a strong leader, strong identity, you know, the message that they could send to the world. And I think when they look back, they realize, yeah, we had the structure, we had those, you know, leaders. I mean, the leader who was really strong and respected. So now they're just trying to figure what we can do again to bring this back, and yeah, basically find a structure and, you know, be. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, so guests, we have a minute left, and I do not have clarity. I have enjoyed listening to all of your opinions, but I have no clarity, and I know exactly how to get it. If I give you one sentence, you can tell me where public opinion actually is regarding Ukraine as far as you're concerned in Russia. So let's start with Roman, and remember, it's only a sentence and no questions. Roman, go ahead.
I think there are no, we cannot speak about public opinion in authoritarian country and within the framework of censorship at all. There is no public opinion.
I think, and it's true, that majority of Russians supports our position on Ukraine.
Slava.
Okay, we have a conflict between Russians and Ukrainians, against Kiev government. That's it.
Olga.
I think Russian opinion is completely shaped by what is Putin want to portray, and it's obviously manipulated.
Interesting. I think I had some clarity there. It's been such a pleasure getting inside the minds of you and telling us your perspective from a story that we've been following internationally for a very, very long time. Thank you very much for being part of this edition of The Stream. Now, next week, I will be in New York. I am practicing my Webby Award speech here. I would like to thank...
And it's only 5 words.
And it's only 5 words. I would like to. Oh, I'm out of words. Oh dear, it's going to be quite difficult. So I will be away in New York. Malika will be hosting the show. What's going to be on Monday's program?
I'll be with Julio Varela as digital producer, and I'll be hosting. We'll be talking about Argentina. Residents of some of the poorest slums in Buenos Aires are on hunger strike, and we'll tell you why and what we can do about it.